It's hard to believe, but it's been more than a month since Governor Gavin Newsom declared a state of emergency in California to help the state deal with the coronavirus, and our whole world changed. Now people are developing coping skills, learning to work from home, teaching their children themselves, and finding ways to kill the boredom from being housebound. But as some things become more routine, other obstacles become more challenging. How will we pay our bills, our rent, our mortgage? When will we ever get back to work and our kids to school? These are the everyday questions we have to all face going forward, but we hope we have a few answers. Fox 11 News In Depth starts right now. Hello, everyone. I'm Hal Eisner. Welcome to Fox 11 News In Depth and to my home office, because this is where I've been working for more than a couple of weeks now. And we're doing our show from home, and we're using Zoom technology to talk to our guests. And, you know, when we talk about this pandemic, we talk mostly about our concerns with regard to the medical aspects of it. But really, we can't overlook the economic impact of all of this. And Congresswoman Norma Torres is with us to talk about some of that. You know, Congresswoman, first of all, let me just ask you this. How are you? How is your family?
I'm doing great. How, under the circumstances of having, to be at home 24/7, we're hanging in there. We've had a little issue with my grandson that was running a fever for a few days, but I think that we're over that rough patch right now.
Well, we've all been touched in some way or another. We certainly know people, many of us, who have got this. We've also maybe known people who have passed away. It's been a very challenging thing. And you know, I want to talk about this $2 trillion emergency relief bill. It's called the CARES Act, which stands for coronavirus something or another. And it's a good acronym, though, because CARES is easy to remember. And it helps out mostly families and businesses. And I want to talk about that for just a moment. But first, tell me about the schools. I want to know what you think of what Governor Newsom said this week about we should not plan on going back to school this year. However, what we should think about is distance learning, that we do school distance learning for the rest of the school year. What's your reaction to that?
So the governor, I truly believe that is trying to do the best for Californians right now. We have to flatten the line, and we have to beat this virus. And the one way that we know how to do that is by maintaining our social distancing. However, that's easier said than done. Our parents, some of the best parents that I know are just, besides themselves, trying to deal with day-to-day activities and keeping their children busy. One of my biggest concerns is the fact that so many of our children have been disconnected, have not checked in with their schools, are not picking up meals, and are simply have disappeared. Those kids are, the most vulnerable kids in our communities, and they may not have access to internet. Their parents may not know that currently we have some internet providers that are providing, a free 3-month trial for internet services. However, the challenge there is that you still have to have a credit card in order to sign up for this service. So there are many, many challenges that I think that the governor will hopefully address in the very, very near future. We just simply cannot keep kids out of school without providing them the tools at home that they need and the competency of instructors at home that they need in order to be successful.
Congresswoman, you're on the House Appropriations Committee. You were involved in this entire $2 trillion package. I know I checked in with some of your aides last week. They told me how busy you were. But what I'd like to know from you is, what will this do to help people in small businesses? Like we said earlier, people are losing their jobs. Businesses are sinking, albeit temporarily. What are you going to be able to do with this bill?
Yeah, this bill is so important. And I think the name itself really is a telling story that, the government does care about our economy, about, day-to-day hardships of average Americans across the United States. The bill targets individual businesses and gives them money in their hands, the availability to be able to apply for grants and apply for forgivable loans as long as they continue to keep their employees employed. As long as people continue to stay on their payroll, those loans will be forgiven. And also, it provides unemployment insurance for our workers. And for the very first time, we are looking at workers in this economy, the gig economy, workers that receive a W-9 instead of, they're not necessarily attached to one company, but they're contract workers. They will be able to apply for uninsurance benefits and receive an extra $600 that is directed to put money in their hands so they can buy the groceries that they need, so they can provide for their families, as well as homeless shelters. That we know that our homeless shelters are right now in the front lines dealing with, some folks in our community that are very, very fragile and are the potential first targets of this coronavirus.
We talk about these small businesses, Congresswoman, and we've heard the stories. We've heard how scared people are. I want you to listen to a couple of folks here, and then we'll discuss.
And I'm also worried about how the businesses will survive. We've had to basically change our business plan and business models completely. And so it's just like starting a brand new business.
My income is zero for the rest of the month.
And zero for the rest of the month is pretty scary to think about. I want to get a final thought from you, Congresswoman. I also want to point out that you've set up your website, torres.house.gov, and click Stay Informed on the website. You've done that to try to give people as much information as possible. What do you say to folks who are feeling exactly like those people you just heard?
I want to reassure them that we are working every single day. I mean, in the last 2 weeks, my staff and I have logged well over 1,000 hours in less than 2 weeks, working to keep our communities informed. And your business may not have any customers right now, but I want to reassure you that we will beat this virus, that our economy will return, and that our communities are going to be much stronger and much better for it. So hang in there for a little bit. Go to my website, call my office, and we will help walk you through the process of applying for the grants that you need. But thank you for doing the right thing trying to keep our employees on the payroll.
We will keep checking in with you, Congresswoman, to see how things are going. Stay healthy, stay safe, you and your family. And coming up next on Fox 11 News In Depth, what's happening with testing for the coronavirus? There's some good news on the horizon. We'll have more on the other side of the break. Everyone, welcome back to Fox 11 News In Depth. I'm Hal Eisner. We're in my home. This is the new normal for us for a little while. And joining me right now is Humayun Kanlu. He's a doctor with the Infectious Disease Division of Urgent Med Network, which is a network of urgent care centers. And, we've heard a lot about a shortage of testing. In fact, testing has been a big discussion for the past few weeks, Doctor. This is an area you're keenly tuned into. Let's start off by talking about where are we on testing?
The testing has been slowly but surely ramping up. There are a couple of multiple centers and private practices that they have started to do the testing. Obviously, it is not at the ideal speed that we would like to, but definitely there is a different modality and possibility for people to get tested, either through LA County or through us or other private groups that perform testing.
Well, let me ask you this. There are all kinds of tests out there. Some have been approved, and there are some things out there that perhaps are scam-like. Anything can happen in a crisis like this. You're working on something, aren't you? Tell us a little bit about what your work is involving.
We're working with the rapid test. There are several technology for the rapid test. There is one which is based on the antibodies, and there's another one which is a molecular basis on the viral, proteins, and which is much more reliable and much more fast. The issue with antibody is that you can detect immediately after the infection or seroconversion.
So to be clear, doctor, if you test the antibodies, you're not going to find out right away?
No, if you get the infection and it takes 7 to 10 days for the your body to produce antibodies, and the test will, when we do it, the test will detect that. So you could be shedding the virus and infecting people during that time. So it wouldn't pick up the early cases. The best test, it will be the test that will test the presence of the virus in patient. And that test is actually not available. We've been promised a scale up. It is done by 2 different companies. One is Abbott, called ID Now. It's their machine, and it gives you the results within 3 minutes, positivity, and 10 minutes negativity. And another one through Cepheid, Expert SARS machine, which gives them information in 45 minutes.
I'm going to ask you a question here. A lot of us sitting at home all of a sudden have sniffles. We all of a sudden think, I feel a little warm. We become a little psychosomatic in situations like this where all of a sudden we think, gee, I wonder if I'm getting sick. But we can't test those things, because in order to test those things, the first thing you got to be able to do is you got to be able to prove that you got the symptoms of coronavirus. So do you feel, like we've heard from others, that once there is more widespread testing, and we find from a lot of people that have not demonstrated symptoms, that we have many, many more people who are home to this virus than realize?
Exactly. And, that's exactly the problem, is that ideally we have to test everyone, symptomatic or non-symptomatic. Currently, we don't have that capacity. Therefore, we are trying to limit the testing to those that we think that it has implication, medical implication for them, hospitalized patient, people with comorbidities, elderlies, and so forth. Right. However, more and more we are start testing people, and we should, in fact. And even you have the sniffles, you may or may not have coronavirus. If you do have a coronavirus, it will be good for you to know. So you basically isolate yourself and try to watch for 2 weeks period of conversion. If you don't have it, then you can go back to your work.
I've got to wrap this up right now at this point. I apologize, but keep up the important work. The testing thing, everybody is very keenly concerned about being sure to be tested. Everybody wants to be sure they don't have it. And then there is that argument that some say, well, if you got it, it was a mild case, you didn't even know it, then maybe you have antibodies for the next time. But Doctor, thanks very much for being with us. Coming up on Fox 11 News In Depth.
Thank you.
What are students doing? A lot of these students are homebound, but wait till you see what one group of students is doing online. We'll be right back.
Who will speak for me? Who will take a stand? The Republic of... What will become of me? Who will speak for me? Who will take a stand? The Republic of no man's land.
This is a viral video of the Valencia High School Vocal Jazz Ensemble 2 and 4 singing an original composition called Refugee, doing it on Zoom. Now, wait till you hear the backstory on this. Christine Mocha is the director of the choir. Hi, Christine. How you doing? How you feeling?
Hi. Saying hello from quarantine.
Yeah, right, exactly. From mine to yours. Yes. I'd love to sing along with your students there, but I don't know the words. That's an original song, huh?
Yes, I wrote it in November. to talk about the refugee crisis that's happening all over the world.
And so how did you coordinate this video? I mean, this thing seems to be taking off online.
You know, the great thing about coming together like this is they actually had an idea, can we do this virtual online performance? Because we're not going to be able to go to any of our competitions or probably perform it in the spring. So I spoke with my husband, who helped me work with a couple programs, and the students sang into their iPhone, and we figured out how to do this together. And I'm so thankful because those kids have worked so hard. And if this is the way that we have to sing together, then we're going to sing. You know, there's a lot going on right now, but this is actually the best and most important time to sing together.
We have video of your students in better times rehearsing. And as we look at that, I want to ask you a question about Governor Newsom this week saying that we all ought to plan on no school this year and distant learning. You're a teacher. How do you feel about this idea that for the rest of the school year, the governor would like to see us all do distance learning?
Well, the hardest thing for our students is that being together in a choir class, doing stuff online is incredibly hard because our instrument is actually being together, the sound of the choir together. However, we recognize that if we have to wait to do that, that lives are at stake here. We will wait it out and sing through it. And then when we finally can come together, that day will be so sweet. But we will eventually come back together. Even if it goes past June or July, we're going to try and do something together as a group.
I want to ask you about something, because you and your group have had a really difficult year with the tick fire and the Saugus High School shooting incident out there. Talk to me about that for a second, how tough this has been on your students.
Many of my students lost friends at Saugus, but it was incredibly connected with us because that school is 2 miles away from us. And in fact, one of our past graduates, who is now the choral director at Saugus High School, experienced it firsthand, Caitlin Holt, and she's a graduate of our program. So we hosted Saugus High School Choir in our choir room the months that school was closed. And the resiliency of the Saugus High students and the Valencia High students and us coming together, this has been the hardest year, but I've really been able to see who my students are. And Caitlin and some of those students have been on this program, but it wasn't just that. It was the tick fire that got you as well, wasn't it? Yeah, we lost school days. Some of the students had a house burn on their street. And it just affected so many of the students with not actually being able to live on that street for a while. So it's just been one thing after another where we've lost days upon days. And, you know, we keep saying this is going to be the hardest year. And I'm like so grateful and thankful of your resiliency to get through this. And then another thing happens. And so it's really taught me as a teacher that the point is just to be there. Say, okay, now this has happened and this is the next thing we have to do to get through this. And they're inspiring me. I'm blown away. I don't know if I could handle this when I was in high school.
All of you are inspiring me. So, you know, whatever you're doing, keep doing it. Take care of those kids. Take care of yourself. And our regards to every one of those students. And we'll keep watching them online. Hopefully there'll be some more music to come out from them. Thank you so much, Christine.
You can count on it. Thank you.
All right. Take care. We'll be back right after the break. With all the sad news lately, it's nice to have some hope and some gratitude stories to make us feel a little bit better. The owner of a couple of restaurants in Westlake Village is certainly doing his part to try to help his furloughed employees feel whole while his restaurants are closed. It's quite a story. Listen.
I'm a full-time student and I was working 3 jobs, but due to this coronavirus, I have lost all of my jobs.
That's a story that's becoming all too common for many folks trying to make it through this pandemic.
Well, everyone who works for us basically lives paycheck by paycheck.
Hamid Sadre is one of Julie Covarrubias' employers. He's a modest man, but is doing something worthy of note. Some employers have simply had to shut their doors because of the coronavirus, just like Sadre's 2 restaurants in Westlake Village, The Landing Grill and Boccaccio's. Between the 2 restaurants, he has 100 employees like Julie Covarrubias and Kevin Min.
So we just decided to purchase some goods last week after we closed to help relieve some of the pain that they're going through. So every week we're going to have some daily needs for their staff to come by and pick up.
That includes meat and eggs, rice, beans, vegetables.
A little wine at the end as well, just in case, for them to actually be able to enjoy themselves.
That may fill the stomach, but it doesn't do much for the wallet.
A lot of us is suffering. A lot of the employees who's working in the restaurant industry might not have the ability to do collect checks or get employment.
I'm really hoping that this ends soon so that everything can go, back to quote unquote normal and everybody can get their jobs back and get their lives back and running again.
So is Hamid. He says his wife is still working her job, so there's some income. But for this business owner, it's time now to care for those who have worked for him for so long and helped him create a business that has lasted a quarter century and employs 100 workers. How is Julie getting by at this moment?
From my savings account that luckily I started not too long ago. I live with a single parent. She also is unemployed. I'm really not getting any help at the moment.
Except from the man she's called her boss, the man she now thinks of as a hero among us.
He doesn't really like to be, he doesn't like that title of, oh my gosh, Hamid, you're such a great guy. He's always like, no, don't say that, this is nothing. He's great, he's got a great head on his shoulders and he wears his heart on his sleeve for sure, and it shows.
Hats off to that restaurant worker. Best wishes to all of those employees that are furloughed, to all of you that might be furloughed as well. And finally, if you haven't already, check out my podcast, What the How. It's available wherever you get podcasts, iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, or Spotify. It's also at whatthehowpodcast.com. Well, that's it for this week. It's been a rough one, but we're getting there, and hang in there, everyone. We'll get through this. Have a good week.
Stripped to the bone, my name unknown. Alone on this boring road, I lost my home. Stripped to the bone, my name unknown. Alone on this foreign